Thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everyone this morning, almost afternoon. Welcome to the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. This morning, we are honored to have with us today the innovative entrepreneur, Michelle Adelman. I would like to welcome you all. As you know, ULAB is, of course, one of the most dynamic universities here in Bangladesh. We have some of the most unique curricula. We have unique opportunities afforded to no other students in the country. Of course, you know that ULAB is a nonprofit institution. What that means is that every taka goes back to the students in the form of scholarships, facilities, faculty, and research. ULAB spends 2 crores annually on research, mainly through our research centers and our Office of Faculty Research. And the students can take part in that research as well. You can do things like work with the local communities, learn research methodologies. You can get your hands dirty in an archaeological dig. There's many opportunities for you. Our oldest research center is a Center for Sustainable Development. At this center, they investigate many ideas and issues that surround sustainable development. That includes gender parity, that includes agriculture, that includes climate change mitigation and disaster risk reduction. Today, we have an excellent opportunity to have Michelle Adelman with us. She has a unique perspective on sustainable agriculture, this time in Botswana, Africa. She's the founder of Accite, a project development and impact investment firm focused on technology-led agriculture and food security projects. Accite's flagship, Go Fresh, is a hydroponic horticulture operator. It is a premier organic and sustainable vegetable brand in Botswana. Go Fresh has received numerous awards, including Botswana's National Horticulture Grand Champions of 2017. Accite's latest ventures aim to be the leading distribution platform for premier food brands and to deliver environmentally sustainable and affordable all-natural meat in sub-Saharan Africa and across the globe. Michelle herself has 30 years of business experience. In 2017, she was named CEO by CEO Global as Africa's most influential woman, and she was named to the Forbes Africa 20 New Wealth Creators list. So please join me in welcoming Michelle Adelman to the dais. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
That's much better. All right, so I have my cards because I talk with my hands, so you'll have to bear with me. I think we've got some. But while this is coming up, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. It is a real pleasure to be here. I have been living in Dhaka since November of 2018 with Ambassador Miller, and it's been really a thrill for me to be in such a vibrant country and such a vibrant economy, and it's very interesting to see the parallels between the world that I've been living in Southern Africa for the last 8 years and what's happening in Bangladesh. So, just to give you guys a little bit of background, I went to university in America, and I have an engineering degree in mechanical and agricultural engineering. And when I graduated from college, I immediately went into the business and corporate world. So I spent the first 20 years of my career working at Accenture, which is the big management consulting company, kind of similar to IBM. They were actually, I think, in Bangladesh for a number of years. But through that corporate experience, I had the opportunity to work all around the world, including spending quite a bit of time in India and China, but I've never had the opportunity to come to Bangladesh.
We're gonna interrupt.
Okay. So anyway, so I spent a number of years in the corporate world before I moved on to become an entrepreneur. And so today I want to share with you some of those experiences. And if you came here looking for answers, I hate to disappoint you right away. Because being an entrepreneur and being in the business world, there aren't very many answers, but there are a lot of questions. So we're going to talk a lot about those questions, because I know as you guys are thinking about where you're going next in your education, going next in your careers, you have lots of questions. So I'm just going to add to the pile, but hopefully give you some thought-provoking things to think about. So when I started Accite 8 years ago, I had an investment thesis, and that was all around how did we use technology to create new businesses and new economic development, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, where, unlike Bangladesh, the economies are very stagnant. They're very based on natural resources, and outside of government and natural resources, very little is going on. The youth unemployment rate is nearly 40%. And most of the growth in the countries is really stagnant. So I was looking at ways that we could create new growth using technology as the catalyst. But fundamental to what I wanted to do was around creating employment for youth, and in particularly empowering women. Because we all know that when we employ women in our societies, whether it be in Africa, whether it be here in Bangladesh, whether it be anywhere in the world, the beneficiation back to the society is enormous, because women tend to invest their income in their families. And when you employ women, not only are you empowering them, you are reducing gender-based violence, but you are also creating a multiplier effect, because when women earn income in society, it goes back to their children, it goes back to education, it goes to healthy food, and it generally is a way of really building communities. And so that was a very important part of what I wanted to do. So I'm going to share with you all some stories of the companies that I've worked on and some of our lessons as we've gone along. But I know all of you guys are big social media fans, so if you want to follow us on any of the social media platforms, you can always find Go Fresh, Infinite Foods, and Crossover Meats and social media. And I put up these two pictures here because I'm going to talk to you guys about a lot of contrasts, right? And there isn't any better picture here of contrast than, me in the business world, in the corporate world, and me as an entrepreneur in my greenhouses growing fresh produce. So just to give you a sense on the types of projects that I work on, so Go Fresh was really our flagship business. It is a fresh produce company where we use greenhouses and technology to effectively grow fresh produce where it was very difficult to grow it before, effectively in the desert. And we do that by using technology that allows us to grow this produce very, very close to the consumer, which allows us to take out all of the cost and the spoilage associated with transporting fresh produce. So in the Bangladesh equivalent would be a rooftop garden, right? So we live in a very highly urban area, and so it's very, very difficult and expensive to transport produce from the rural areas into Dhaka. There's a lot of spoilage that happens along the way. And so the idea is that you use technology to be able to grow fresh produce on the rooftops, right? Mine happens to be on the ground, but the same technology could be used to grow on the rooftops, and you literally move the fresh produce from the rooftop to the consumer, and you're able to eliminate a lot of the spoilage associated with that. So that's our Go Fresh business. We operate 4 locations, so we endeavor to always be within just a couple of kilometers of our consumer. And we've really changed the way our relationship with our customer, and I want to bring this out because it's something I'm going to bring up as we go along in the discussion today, which is that relationship with your customer as you're thinking about being an entrepreneur is very, very important. And we've effectively changed the way our customers buy fresh produce. Before we came into the marketplace, they might buy fresh produce only once a week. And they would buy a whole week's worth of fresh produce and they would store it in their refrigerators. And then throughout the week, they would draw down on that. But by the end of the week, the produce was starting to get very old. And the lettuce was kind of slimy and the tomatoes weren't fresh anymore. And they would throw a lot away. And sometimes they wouldn't have enough to put on the plate for their customers or put on the retail shelves. By using this technology, we now enable our customers to buy fresh from us every day. And we pick fresh every morning, we deliver to our customers every day, and that's really changed the nature and the value proposition that we deliver to our customers. And that's just an example of how your customer in business is very important, and we'll talk more about this. So as we started understanding what it was like to be in the fresh produce business, we started looking broadly at what were the next waves, what were the next challenges in the world as it related to food security. And fresh produce is one of them, because around the world, nearly 60% of all the fresh produce is lost in the supply chain. But the next wave is protein, right? So as populations are growing in Africa and South Asia, people are moving into the middle class, it's natural that people move into a more protein-heavy diet. And if we look at how our protein is produced today, primarily from animals, in form of beef or lamb or goat or pork in some industries, the livestock industry is has a very big impact on the environment. Right? So cows, in particular, are really terrible for the environment. They eat a lot of plants. Right? So you have to feed a cow 7 kilograms of plants in order for it to produce 1 kilogram of meat. It drinks a lot of water and it farts a lot. All right? And so the burping and the farting of the cows, it creates a huge amount of gas, and this has a very, very big impact on our climate. Right? So the farmers that complain about climate change and about the shifting weather patterns and of the floods and the rain, they don't realize that their cows are causing half the problem, right? So as we looked at this market, we said, look, there are two solutions that we can look at in terms of how we can start to be part of the change, right? One was, instead of creating meat by putting plants into cows and then slaughtering the cows and having meat, why don't we just make meat directly out of plants? Crazy idea, right? If you think about a cow, it's just a little manufacturing vehicle for protein. And not a very efficient one at that, right? It's not a very good factory, right? It has a big smokestack, has a lot of inputs, and it creates a lot of waste that has to be taken care of. So why do we put plants in cows and to create meat? Why can't we just take plants and turn them into meat? Why can't we just take plants and turn them into milk? Why can't we take plants and turn them into eggs? Why do we have to use the chickens and the cows as the manufacturing vehicle? So that's where a whole bunch of research and technology is currently going on. A lot of it is being driven in the United States. A lot of it's being driven out of Silicon Valley, where all your Facebook money is going. And we decided to get on the early edge of this. And so we founded Infinite Foods. And Infinite Foods is all about introducing these new kind of products into Africa and emerging markets kind of well ahead of their time. Like at the time that you guys are scratching your heads going, why would I make a hamburger out of plants? And then the last business, crossover quality meats, is the other solution, which is saying, okay, we all like to eat our meat, right? So how can we make that meat more environmentally friendly? And we have worked with a Stanford professor to develop a patented process that allows us to blend different meats together, like chicken and beef. And chickens are actually much better for the environment than cows. They don't fart as much. So when we blend chicken and beef together, we can actually create hamburger or ground beef product that actually tastes just like beef, but it's much better for the environment by about 50%, and it's more affordable.
So those are the kinds of businesses that I'm working on, and I'll give you guys lots of kind of anecdotes from them as I go along here today. So why you? Right? Why is this talk important to you today? Right? I think the set of charts behind me tell the story. And if you watch this one move, this talks about where the population of the world is shifting. All right? And if you look at where we are in 2025, in 2010, moving to 2025, into 2050, into 2070, and 2075, you see the population shift is moving into Africa and South Asia. Right? This is where all the action is. Right? This is where all the demand is building. This is where business has got to happen. Right? And while we all may, Americans sometimes think that America is the center of the universe. And Donald Trump certainly tells us that we should think that America is the center of the universe. But the reality is the center of the universe is moving, right? And it's moving here. Dhaka is on this map today, and it'll be on this map in 2075. So Bangladesh is in a very, very important position as part of the growth of the world, right? Which means you as young potential leaders are sitting on a tremendous amount of potential to be part of the fabric of the industries that you're interested in. Whether it be food, like what I'm interested in, whether it be sustainable energy, whether it be finance or banking, or whatever it is that you're interested in, right? You guys are sitting at a very, very interesting opportunity and an interesting crux in the development of Bangladesh as a country. You guys are coming up to your big 50th anniversary, right? As a player in this market, sitting very strategically between India and China. So you guys, and sitting on a domestic population of over 160 million people, right? So when you build a business, you've already got 160 million consumers. When I build a business in Botswana, I have 2 million consumers. When I build a business in South Africa, I have 50 million consumers. If I want to build a business that has 1 billion consumers, I have to cover all of sub-Saharan Africa. Right? So you guys are in a very, very interesting opportunity inflection point in global development, and that opens up a whole world of opportunities, in my opinion. So let me give you some lessons, which aren't actually really lessons, but let me give you some lessons around what I've experienced in my transition from being in corporate to being an entrepreneur and building these new businesses. So the first lesson is everyone can be entrepreneurial, but not everyone can be an entrepreneur. All right, so everyone can be entrepreneurial, but not everyone can be an entrepreneur. So what does that mean? So first it means that it's okay to get a job. Right? So many of you are thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do these things. Do I get a job? Do I go be an entrepreneur? I don't know. Right? I graduated from college and got a job. And it worked out just fine. Okay? And actually getting a job is not a bad idea. Right? When you work for a corporation, you get an opportunity to learn a lot of different things, and you get to learn about things in a very structured environment. And learning those things in that structured environment can be very helpful when you want to become an entrepreneur later on, if that's what you choose to do. You also may find that you like that structure, right? And that feels very comfortable for you, and that's where you want to continue your career. But even within a company, right? Even within a corporate environment, you can still be entrepreneurial, right? Because entrepreneurial really means being proactive. It means stepping up to the next challenge. It means telling your boss, hey, I'll take that project, let me lead it, right? So you have the opportunity to be entrepreneurial in anything that you do. It just means being proactive, stepping up, taking some risks, and being engaged. It doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur to go start your own business from scratch. Because I'll tell you right now, it's not easy. You know, one of the hard things in life is that nobody advertises failure, right? You know, nobody gets on Facebook and says, gosh, I had a really terrible day today, right? You know, today I couldn't pay my employees' payroll, right? Today I lost a major customer. You know, today the regulations changed and my business just became unprofitable. Today a new competitor came into the marketplace and I'm really stuffed, right? Nobody advertises failure. But the reality is 9 out of 10 businesses fail. And that means more than 9 out of 10 startups fail. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to have the stomach for it, right? And it doesn't also hurt to have some money in your pocket, because it never is as smooth as you think it is going to be, and it's never as smooth as you want it to be, and it's never as smooth as you planned it to be. So having those resources available to you is very important. But don't feel like you have to be an entrepreneur to be entrepreneurial. If you decide to go take a job and enjoy it and step up and become entrepreneurial within your company. So the next lesson about being an entrepreneur is you can't do everything, but you have to do everything. Get it? Don't look at me so puzzled. You can't do everything, right? You're one, as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, it is impossible for you to do everything in the company by yourself, right? You have to build a team. You have to have partners. You have to have investors. You have to have stakeholders that will help you along. You cannot do everything by yourself. On the other hand, you have to be willing, and at one point in your development of your business, you will have to do every single thing in your business yourself, including the unglamorous things. I've spent more time doing unglamorous things in the entrepreneurial world than I ever did in the corporate world. Right? When you're an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to put your boots on, right? And build your business from the ground up. That means you have to understand every single little bit of your business, and you have to be willing to do the work. Because sometimes you can't afford somebody to do the work. And sometimes it's just very important for you to do the work so you can learn. Because the most important part of running a business is managing risk. And it's very difficult to manage risk that you can't see. And it's very difficult to manage risk that you don't understand. And if you haven't done every nitty-gritty job in your company, whether it be writing an invoice or calling a customer and telling them they have to pay you, or handling a different customer service call, or making a sales call and closing a customer, or fixing an operational problem, right? Or managing and balancing your financials, or analyzing your balance sheet. If you don't have the ability, or firing someone, that's always my favorite one, right? You know how hard it is to fire people? It's much harder than it sounds. So you have to be willing to do the nitty-gritty, right? You have to be willing, and you have to understand every little bit of your business from the ground up. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're probably not going to be a successful entrepreneur. And at the same time, at some point, you have to let it go, right? And you have to build a team, you have to build people around you so that you are not doing everything yourself. But you have to be willing to do it if it comes along. So what is the next lesson? So the next lesson is the math always tells the truth, but sometimes the math lies. right? So math always tells the truth. The numbers always tell the truth, but sometimes they lie. So the point here is that the financials of your business are very, very important, right? And those of you guys who are in business, I would really encourage you guys, if you haven't done it already, to take an accounting course if you want to be an entrepreneur. If you don't understand the economics of your business, it's very, very difficult to succeed. And the most important is what I call the unit economics, right? So the unit economics is what does it cost, what kind of revenue do you make, and what does it cost you to create one unit of your business, right? So in my business it is, what does it cost me to grow 1 kilogram of tomatoes? What is my revenue? What is my cost? What is my gross profit? And what is my overhead, right? If you can't understand or get to what is the unit cost of your business, you have no chance of succeeding. Because you don't know what levers that you need to pull, right? You don't know if you need to pull levers around price, around volume, around cost management. If you don't understand the economics of your business and you're not willing to do the accounting so that you understand how the business comes together, it's very, very difficult to succeed. So learn your math, trust the math, and make sure that you're always looking at your numbers and running your business by your numbers. On the other hand, sometimes the math lies to you. And the place that it lies to you most is when it comes to your brand and to your customers. And your people. And sometimes the math will tell you, I need to make cuts. My costs are too high, right? But actually what you need to do is you need to spend more money. You need to spend more money on your brand to get more visibility. You need to spend more money on your people to make them more productive. You need to spend more money on marketing to drive customers and volume to you, right? And it's very counterintuitive. So sometimes the math tells you, I'm fine, I'm growing, it's cool. Sometimes the math says, I'm not making as much money as I should, I need to cut costs, right? The math never tells you, invest in your brand, invest in your people, invest in your customers. It doesn't speak to you that way. You have to know, right? And you have to trust your instincts. And let me give you an example. So with GoFresh, right, we are really a little business, right? We are only about 5% of the Botswana domestic production of fresh produce. And yet, we are the most profitable, we're the most recognized brand, right? And we have not lost a customer in 5 years, right? Why is that, right? It's because sometimes the numbers are telling us the truth but they're lying, right? And we have made a specific point to invest in our brand and to invest in our people and to invest in our relationship with our customers so that we have a unique position. So going back to my story that I said earlier, we changed how our customers behaved, right? So they used to buy fresh produce once a week from the lowest cost provider. But they ended up losing a lot of money because they were throwing fresh produce out that was spoiled at the end of the week. By changing our relationship with our customer and allowing them to order from us every day and for us to deliver fresh to them every day, they became uniquely dependent on us, right, as a business. And we created a competitive barrier between ourselves and our competition. And that competitive barrier not only is because we have a great product at a good price, but because of that relationship that we built with the customer and the uniqueness. And that all came because the math lied and we invested in our brand. And I think that ties back to this next point, which is, I probably should have said you have to count your taka, right? But especially when you are starting a new business, cost management is very important. There's nothing that I see that happens more frequently is when somebody starts a new business and they happen to get a little bit of investment money, right? The first thing that they do is they run out and they buy a new computer and a new iPhone, right? And they spend their investment money on a whole bunch of things that don't actually drop to the bottom line, right? That don't actually create their business. So, and when you're starting a business, nothing ever goes to plan, right? When I write a financial plan and I know my numbers, right? And I put it in front of my investors, this is what I tell them. The only thing that I know about this business plan is that it is wrong and that there's a spreadsheet error in it somewhere. That's the only thing that you know for sure. So when you write your business plan and you decide that you're going to go launch this new entrepreneurial venture, the only thing that you know absolutely for sure is that your business plan is wrong and that there's an error in it somewhere. Everything else is up for grabs. Right? So when you're starting a new business, and if you decide you want to be an entrepreneur, when you get that initial seed money and you take that first leap, count your taka. Be very careful about how you spend your money, right? Because things are not going to happen as fast as what's in your business plan. And you're not going to be as profitable, and your revenues are going to be slower, and your costs are going to be higher, and that's just the way it is every single time, in my experience. All right? But don't forget to invest in your brand. And your brand is not just your public brand, right? Your brand is in your people, right? And it is with your customers. Most of us, and certainly in Bangladesh, we work in very labor-intensive businesses, right? I work in a very labor-intensive business in agriculture. If my team is not happy and motivated and on the ball, we cannot succeed. If I don't have a productive workforce that's engaged and understands what they're doing, I can't succeed. So investing in your brand is also about investing in your people and making sure your people have the pride, the swagger around who you are and who you stand for as a business. So, for example, one of the things that we do is we don't do a traditional mission, vision, value statement, right? Which is something that you commonly see. When you go into a business, you see their mission, their vision, their value statement, and it's posted on the wall. We write a manifesto, right? It's a short manifesto, but it's something that our whole team participates in writing, and then we put it up on the wall, and it's in everywhere that where we are. And in GoFresh, our manifesto starts with make a plan. Make a plan. And that's a short code word for solve the problem. Because every day the problem comes up, and it's the most important thing that we put. It's the very first line of our manifesto, which is make a plan. And that's something that has permeated our culture, and it's helped make us successful. Because everyone on our team knows that when something goes wrong, we need to make a plan. And it's not their boss's responsibility to make a plan, and it's not the fault of their workers below them that caused the problem. It's not the customer's fault. It never is the customer's fault, by the way, even if it is the customer's fault, right? You have to make a plan. So those things that you do to invest in your brand, your people, are critically important to your success. And the last lesson I want to share with you is, as an entrepreneur, you are alone. You are very alone. It is very, very challenging. Last night I laughed because I woke up this morning and I told Ambassador Miller, I had this dream and I pulled off the highway and everywhere I went there were lions, right? I mean, all right, so first of all, I mean, why are there lions just off the highway, right? But, you know, everywhere I turned in my dream, there were lions that were trying to eat me, right? So as an entrepreneur, you can feel very, very alone. And in many ways, as an entrepreneur, everything rests on your shoulders, right? Everything rests on your shoulders. Your strategy, whether you're going in the right direction, your operational effectiveness, whether or not you're bringing investors, whether you're going to make payroll or not, whether you're going to keep this customer, whether you're going to sign this customer, everything falls on your shoulders. And so it can be very lonely. So if you're not prepared to be lonely and have dreams about lions trying to eat you in the middle of the night, probably not a great idea to venture off and be an entrepreneur. But on the other hand, you cannot succeed alone. So while you may have to take on the weight of your business on your shoulders, you need to engage with people around you who can help make you successful, right? Just like this university doesn't operate on its own, right? We have faculty, you have staff, you have a board of trustees, right? As a business person, you have investors, you have bankers, you have customers, you have suppliers, you have employees, you have advisors. You have to get all of those people engaged in your success. And it's when all of those people are engaged in your success that you can feel less alone. And that you can be more successful. So these are my two favorite quotes. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, they're probably decent ones to live by. So I think I'm starting to get too old. Who has seen Star Wars? Okay, so at least some of you guys, I go into someone and says, nobody's seen Star Wars. I mean, how can you live without Star Wars? All right, but for those of you guys who haven't seen Star Wars, there's a little gremlin dude named Yoda, right? And Yoda is the teacher. And Yoda teaches Luke Skywalker and all the cool dudes how to use their lightsaber, right? But Yoda says, there is no try. There is only do or not do. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to live by this. There is no trying in entrepreneurship, right? You either do it or you don't do it. And there's nothing in between. Now, my other favorite quote apparently was said by the Dalai Lama, but I'm pretty positive he didn't say this. But that is, understand the rules so that you know how to break them nicely. Now, I'm not saying run out and be a bunch of criminals, right? But I'm saying understand how and why things got to be where they are so that you can break through and create new realities. And I'll give you a simple example. We're launching this new product in crossover meats, right? And we have to get approval from the US Department of Agriculture for the label that goes on our packaging, right? And the rules around how the US Department of Agriculture wants us to label our new product is not going to make it very attractive to consumers, okay? So we've had to go back and dig through the history of why is the regulation the way this regulation is. Regulations are usually they're usually the manifestation of the last bad thing that happened. All right, so the last bad thing happened became the current law, right? So you have to go back, in this case, we have to go back and say, why is it that the regulation was written this way? And how can we now negotiate with the USDA to show them that we're not repeating this last mistake that happened. We have a new approach and a different way of tackling this problem, and this is why our label should say X instead of Y. All right, so that's a very simple example, which is if I didn't understand the rules, if I didn't understand why did the USDA require you to label something a specific way, then I would not be able to have an effective argument to go back to them and say, look, this is why we want our label to be approved to look like this. Okay? The same thing with your customers and your suppliers, right? Your customers and your suppliers have a way of doing business, right? They've got their own set of rules. And sometimes those set of rules are in contrast to what you want to get done, right? But by understanding what those rules are, right, it helps you puts you in a different negotiating position with your customer, right? So, for example, I run into this a lot in my industry because we sell food to restaurants, right? And sometimes they don't like to pay their bills on time. Well, a lot of times they don't like to pay their bills on time, right? So, you know, you have to be able to say to your customer, you know, do you let your patron who comes in and who consumed that lettuce that we grew and delivered to you and you've contracted to pay us for, did the customer that came into your restaurant that ate that lettuce and that salad, did they walk out the door and not pay you? They go, no. And I was like, well then why is it okay for you not to turn around and pay us? So understand the rules so that you can break them nicely. Okay, so I know you guys have a lot of questions, and I'm here to answer them with questions. But no, I'll do my best. I know there was a couple of things, and I hopefully think that I've hit some of these, but let me just kind of touch on them quickly, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A, because what I really want to hear is from you guys and what your questions are and how I can provide you some insights. So where do I start? Okay. I think that question is very personal. My experience was I started with getting a job. And I have to admit, it did serve me very well, right? That experience of working in a corporate environment, learning processes, getting exposure to management, getting exposure to technology, understanding how the corporate world works, it was very helpful for me when I decided to go off and be an entrepreneur. If you want to be an entrepreneur, great, right? But just, you know, remember the 5 lessons first, right? And remember that it's just not that easy. And nobody's running around advertising their failure. People are only talking about what they did that succeeded. So don't think that it's easy. But where do you start is a difficult question. It's deeply personal, but getting a job is not a terrible idea. Okay. How do I compete for jobs? This is a very challenging one in this very competitive environment. One of the things that is very important, at least in the world that I live in, is that people come to you with some level of experience. So we have a very rich internship program where a lot of people come and intern for us, and we take a lot of our hiring pool out of that internship program. Most of those internship roles are not paid, by the way. Okay, so people come and they volunteer or work for very little money to have an opportunity to intern with our companies. And while I would love to pay them, in certain instances we can't, right? But they come anyway, so we take them. And it's that internship pool that actually really, really turns out to be our best hiring pipeline. So make sure that you're stepping out and getting some work experience. You know, I know in this culture, education is so important, and that's great, right? It's fantastic. But don't let that get in the way of getting some practical experience along the way. All right? So go get an internship. Ask somebody that you know for help. I mean, there's very few people when you rock up and say, hey, I would like to help, I would like to learn, put me to work, that people are going to say no to. It just doesn't happen, right? So take that initiative, get some experience, get an internship, work on projects, and they can be for-profit projects, they can not-for-profit organizations, but when people are trying to hire you, they're going to look for that initiative. Because it ties into question number 3, which is, what if my skills don't match, right? What if I've been studying one topic and I want to go get a subject in another topic? Well, I mean, I can tell you for sure, you know, with an engineering degree, you know, other than fixing, I do now fix a pump or two. But, you know, for the first 20 years of my career, I really didn't use anything that came out of my engineering degree, right? But I used the analytical skills that I learned, right? I used the technical writing skills that I learned. I used the skills that I learned from my communications course. And so it's not just about your degree versus the job. It's about what are you bringing to the table. It's very interesting when Accenture recruits for jobs, there's literally no match between the degree and the job. Instead, it's based on six basic skills and behaviors. All right? 6 basic skills and behaviors. And if you can demonstrate those 6 basic skills and behaviors, you can get a job at Accenture, regardless of what your degree was in. Right? And those 6 skills and behaviors start with being a self-starter. Right? Being a self-starter, so having initiative, demonstrating that you're willing to go out and take things on that are new. Right? 2, dealing with difficult people. Guess what? Right? It doesn't go away when you get out of university. Right? So dealing with difficult people. Can you work with difficult people without like it being drama all the time? Right? Nobody in their workforce wants drama all the time. Right? So your ability to deal with difficult people. And can you solve problems? Those are the top 3. Right? So it doesn't matter what your degree is, really, as it relates to the job that you want. What you have to demonstrate to your employer is that you have the fundamental basic skills and capabilities. Because frankly, you just graduated from college. They don't actually expect you to know anything. I know that sounds crazy, but they don't expect you to know anything, right? So you have to actually, if you can demonstrate those skills and behaviors, it goes a long way. If I get a job, am I giving up on entrepreneurship? I think that goes back to my lesson number 1, right? Which is, no. You can be entrepreneurial within your job. You can be entrepreneurial within nonprofit organizations that you participate in, right? Being entrepreneurial doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur. I mean, go for it. But you can be entrepreneurial, and if you get a job, you're not giving up on being entrepreneurial. Or you can always go back and be entrepreneurial later, when you have a little bit of cushion and some experience that will actually help you out. How do I adjust to life after college? Again, this one is very deeply personal, but I'll just tell you, they call it work for a reason, right? So expect that you're gonna have to work, right? Expect that you're gonna have to put in hours. Expect that you're gonna have to show commitment. Expect that you're gonna have to balance your personal life and your family life and your work life. And you're gonna have to make some priorities in order to succeed. But, you know, it's called work. Hopefully you love it, and then it doesn't really feel like work, but still it's called work. And then, you know, do I get a job or do I get an MBA? This is a hard one, and again, deeply, deeply personal. For me, I like to say, like, I went to the school of hard knocks. I think that getting an MBA is very valuable. I think it's more valuable after you've had a couple of years of work experience. I think the context of actually moving from the theoretical and the academic, which you've been in as undergrads, into having some work experience to now going back and studying again is a very powerful combination. Because it puts everything in context that you don't have if you go immediately from academic to academic. So I would encourage you to go get some experience. And I think that'll actually make your MBA program much more powerful and much more impactful because it'll put it into context of what you're doing. So I know those were some of your initial questions, but I'd like to really open it up to the floor and hear what you guys have to say. I've hopefully given you a couple of pearls of wisdom. I know I answered questions with questions, but you know, that's the way life is. And I hope that you guys learned a little bit of something today. So let's open up to the floor.
I'd like to invite on stage Professor Imran Rahman, Special Advisor to the Board of Trustees and Dean of School of Business, to moderate the question and answer session.